A black nurse worked tirelessly to save a wealthy patient who treated her with nothing but racism and cruelty. She saved his life anyway because that's what nurses do, expecting nothing in return. 2 weeks later, he showed up at her apartment door with something that left her absolutely speechless. The emergency room lights blazed harsh and unforgiving as Jasmine Carter rushed alongside the gurney carrying her newest patient, a wealthy businessman in his 60s having a massive heart attack. His expensive suit was soaked with sweat, his face contorted with pain, but even in his medical crisis he found energy to be cruel. "Get your hands off me," he gasped between labored breaths, his eyes landing on Jasmine with immediate contempt. "I want a different nurse. I don't want her touching me." The ER doctor didn't even pause, barking orders while Jasmine maintained professional composure, despite the sting of racism she'd experienced countless times in her 12 years of nursing. "Sir, she's the best cardiac nurse we have. You're lucky she's on shift tonight. Now stop talking and let us save your life." Jasmine had learned long ago not to take patient behavior personally during medical emergencies, understanding that fear and pain made people reveal their worst selves. But this patient, whose name she learned was Richard Thornton, maintained his hostility, even as she worked efficiently to stabilize him. She inserted IVs with practiced skill, while he muttered racial slurs under his breath, monitored his vitals while he complained about her competence, administered medications that kept him alive while he demanded different staff. Through it all, Jasmine remained calm and professional, her hands steady, her focus absolute, because her job wasn't to judge patients but to save them, even when they were terrible people who didn't deserve her excellence. The night stretched into morning as Richard's condition remained critical, requiring constant monitoring and immediate interventions that Jasmine provided without hesitation. She caught dangerous heart rhythm changes before alarms even sounded, adjusted medications with precision that prevented complications, and essentially refused to let this hateful man die on her watch, despite having every emotional reason to do the bare minimum. Her colleagues whispered admiration for her grace under such disrespect, her supervisor noting in her file that Jasmine had quite literally saved a life while being verbally abused for hours, maintaining standards of care that exceeded what anyone could reasonably expect given the circumstances. By dawn, Richard was stable enough to move to ICU. His heart attack survived because of quick thinking and expert care he'd actively resisted. As they wheeled him out of the ER, he was finally silent, exhausted and perhaps slightly humbled by how close he'd come to dying. Jasmine finished her shift, documented everything professionally without mentioning his behavior, and went home to her modest apartment exhausted in body and spirit. She showered away the hospital smell, tried to wash away the memory of being treated as less than human while saving someone's life, and fell into bed wondering why she kept choosing a profession that often felt thankless, especially when patients made their racism so obvious. 2 weeks passed with Jasmine working her regular rotation, the incident with Richard Thornton fading into the collection of difficult patient experiences every nurse accumulated over a career. She'd almost forgotten him entirely when her doorbell rang on her day off. Unexpected, because she wasn't expecting visitors and delivery people usually left packages without ringing. She opened the door cautiously and froze, recognizing immediately the man standing on her doorstep, looking healthy and nervous. No longer the dying patient from her ER, but very much the person who'd treated her terribly while she saved his life. Richard stood there holding a large envelope, his expensive clothes and confident bearing restored, but his expression carrying something Jasmine hadn't seen during their previous encounter: genuine shame. "Miss Carter, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see. I wouldn't blame you for closing this door in my face, but I needed to come here. I needed to say something I should have said in the hospital." His voice cracked slightly, emotion breaking through practiced composure. "You saved my life while I treated you with inexcusable cruelty. You gave me excellent care while I hurled racism at you. You did your job with dignity while I showed you none. I was raised with prejudices I'm not proud of, but nearly dying made me realize that your skin color didn't determine your competence. Your skill did. Your compassion did. You were professional when I was hateful. You were excellent when I was terrible. And I'm ashamed." Jasmine stood in her doorway, arms crossed, face carefully neutral, waiting to see if this apology had substance or was just words seeking absolution? Richard continued, his hands shaking slightly as he held out the envelope. I can't undo what I said or how I treated you, but I can try to show that my near-death experience taught me something. I've established a nursing scholarship fund in your name at your hospital. Full tuition for nursing students from underrepresented communities. This envelope contains the first scholarship certificates and a letter from the hospital president explaining the program. It's funded with $2 million. It won't erase my behavior, but maybe it can help create more nurses like you who save lives despite facing the prejudice I embodied. Jasmine's careful composure cracked, tears filling her eyes as she took the envelope with shaking hands, opening it to find official documents establishing the Jasmine Carter Nursing Excellence Scholarship Fund, a program that would fund nursing education for dozens of students who might otherwise never afford it. Students who looked like her, who came from communities like hers, who would now have opportunities because a racist patient had learned something from nearly dying while being saved by someone he'd tried to demean. Richard's voice was thick with emotion. I've spent 2 weeks going to therapy, really confronting my prejudices, understanding where they came from and why they're wrong. I've resigned from boards where I was the only voice opposing diversity initiatives. I've apologized to people I've hurt over years of casual racism. I'm trying to become someone different, someone better. It might be too late for me to completely change, but your professionalism in the face of my hatred showed me what real character looks like. Jasmine wiped her tears, her voice finally emerging steady and strong. Mr. Thornton, I didn't save your life expecting gratitude or compensation. I did it because that's what nurses do. We don't choose patients based on whether they deserve care. We give it because everyone deserves to live, even when they're terrible people having terrible moments. But this scholarship, she gestured to the envelope, this isn't just about me or you. This is about the next generation of nurses who'll face what I face, who'll need support to get through school, who'll become excellent caregivers despite the obstacles. If your near-death experience resulted in this, then maybe something good came from that terrible night. Richard nodded, more tears in his eyes than pride would normally allow. One more thing. I've arranged for you to be the scholarship committee chair. You'll decide which students receive funding. The hospital agreed immediately. They said you're exactly the kind of nurse who should be shaping the next generation. Jasmine felt overwhelmed, honored, and still processing that her worst shift had somehow transformed into a moment that would impact countless lives. Richard stepped back, preparing to leave. I won't take more of your time. But thank you, Ms. Carter, for saving my life, yes, but more importantly, for showing me through your actions what I should have learned long ago. That character has no color. That excellence comes from dedication, and that sometimes the people we look down on are actually far above us in every way that matters. Years later, when the first scholarship recipients graduated and became practicing nurses themselves, they learned the story of how their funding came to exist. A terrible patient having a heart attack, a black nurse who saved him despite his cruelty, and a man who learned humanity when faced with his own mortality. Jasmine attended every scholarship ceremony, watching students walk across stages to receive funding that existed because she'd refused to let racism stop her from being excellent at her job, because she'd saved a life that didn't deserve saving, but deserved it anyway because that's what nurses do.